Okay, haven't posted anything to the channel in a while. Been, you know, doing me. I saw Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey last night, and I have to say I was genuinely blown away. I read a lot of criticism, some right of center criticism about DEI casting, some presumably left of center criticism about maybe Christianizing Homer. A lot of historical criticism about the Viking ships, the Iron in the Bronze Age anachronisms, and then when I watched the movie, oh God, the clothing and everything. But what I did not anticipate was that all that worked. It really worked, and the anachronisms were part of a bigger picture. We cast all kind of people. Matt Damon has got this clearly Germanic, like Anglo-Saxon look. We've got African Americans. We've got mestizo Latinos. Ethnic groups that wouldn't emerge for thousands of years after the movie was, the time in which the movie. We got Viking ships. We got a whole mashup. But the point of all of that is a part of, I guess, a kind of a new genre of like how we bring the past history allegory to the modern American is we put the modern American in those places. So for me, I'm thinking, okay, it's kind of a little bit like Hamilton, right? We're bringing this America back into that world, but it's not the real world, because what I noticed was the continual focus on Zeus's law. And then, more than breadcrumbing, Nolan makes absolutely clear with references to the sea peoples, with references to this age of bronze collapsing, okay? And then at the end, that whole line about, why songs only? Well, because that's all they will have to remember those of us who could write. Yeah, he's really clearly penning the Bronze Age collapse on the violations of Xenia, or Zeus's law, that happened in in this story, in the collapse of Troy and the trickery of the horse and all the things. Okay, none of that's real. None of that's real. The Bronze Age collapse was not caused by changes in societal norms, right? Because none of this, it's not about that. This movie is not about Homer. It's not even about Odysseus, right? It's an allegory about the collapse of civilization / society in the 21st century because of the collapse of the world order. Now, this is deep. He wrote the fucking epitaph for North American global dominance. Now, history has to prove that that's actually what happened here. But Christopher Nolan seems to be betting that that's exactly what's happening. That in, 3,000 years, people are going to be looking back on this society and thinking this age of whatever we call it, collapsed because, cooperation broke down, globalization fell apart, the world order collapsed, and these caused these knock-on effects, etc., etc. That's what he seems to be betting on, and he told his story really well, really well. And the deep traumatic knowing that Matt Damon's Odysseus has, as he talks about what he's seen and why it took him 20 years to come back, because he just wasn't ready to face all that truth. And in the end, it's a pretty hopeful film, because eventually Greece recovers. Eventually, the Iron Age comes along, and while those cultures and peoples did, suffer for centuries, linear A, linear B, goes out. People forget how to write. We got to learn how to write all over again. All the things. Eventually, society moves on, and I think that's what Nolan's big takeaway is that eventually there will be people looking back on everything that happens now, and they will just simply view it as myths and stories about the past. So I got a message of hope out of the movie. A lot of sense of connection to times past and maybe times in the future. Um, I resonated with the sense that like this feels like here in this time in this society, this feels like what it must feel like for a society facing collapse. And that won't be the end. It might be the end of some things that we recognize and know, but it won't be the end.